Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us, on this APPI. Let me clear that. On this APPI Learn by Doing workshop, really. We always do have a topic going along with these. And today, I hope we'll have some fun with a really important topic: independence, personal independence, personal free will, and then entanglements. So the outline is very simple. First, we will talk about ARV from the perspective of newbies, and this will be a review for your oldbies, for you oldbies. And then we'll get into the independence, free will, and entanglements. We'll do feedback for coordinate 972364, and then we'll do a new prediction. So this is our agenda for today. Now let's begin with ARV. And I think first it makes sense to just talk about it on how we'll do it and how we do it in linear time. So in linear time, it begins with a remote viewing session. And the purpose of the remote viewing session and the tasking for it is quite simple. Describe and sketch your feedback target, which of course you're going to see later in time. That's what this precognitive ARV is all about. And consciousness has access to information from distant places and times. This has been now proven over and over again scientifically. We've done so many great sessions here that we just take that now as a given, and you should do that too. Get deep within yourself that your consciousness is really a rather marvelous capability. Okay, so then the feedback session is going to come later in time, and this is when you see and experience the actual feedback target. So in principle, that's really what ARV is all about, except we need to discuss the associative part of that. And to make it useful, there is a analysis judging session in between. It could be done by another person, which is called independent judging, or you can do it yourself. That's up to the viewer to make that choice. But this is when an actual judgment is made, when we can take some particular action. Now, we're doing binary ARV. So that is basically a yes-no situation where a question is asked and the answer is going to be yes or no. So with binary ARV, since there are two possible answers, and the yes and no, okay, will the market move up? Sometimes we frame this as binary with an up or down, or sports, team A, team B, that sort of thing. But it's always binary. And so since you're trying to get the answer to a binary question, it makes sense that there would be two possible targets. There's only one real target, the one you're going to see here. But at this stage, before the outcome is known, there are two possible targets. Now, guess what? One is associated with yes, and one is associated with no. Now, okay, so that makes sense. The one you are going to see is what actually happens. That is always done. That's immutable. So you will always see the association associated with the actual outcome. I like to think of this as the truth. So when you're doing your remote viewing session here, you are going to see the target, which is the true target associated with the yes or no. That's ARV. I will give it to you in another perspective, but let's first define precognition. Now, precognition means knowing. So pre-knowing, knowledge of something in advance of its occurrence through means not accepted by society's paradigm of time. I, of course, have added that, but that in fact is what it is right now. It is not fully accepted, and yet it's a real capability of human beings. Now, for example, being able to predict the outcome of an ARV tasking and being able to do this prediction with odds much better than chance. To really use precognition on purpose, and that's what we're really all about, is using purposeful precognition. The way to think about this is it actually begins with your feedback session. So here's your remote viewing session, first in time, and time is the judging. Here's the here's your feedback session. Now, thinking of it as beginning here makes really good sense, because this is where the truth is, and this is where the information is in a retrocausal fashion. With a simple model, you can think of it as being sent back in time. You know, we talked about time going forward, but precognition shows that information can be shared backwards in time. There are other kinds of models. But the fact is that this happens. And so this idea that it begins with your feedback session, I think, is a real good one to get in your deep being. And we're going to be doing feedback sessions where we pay a lot of attention to the actual target so that we can entangle that with the remote viewing session. Okay, so as we've already discussed, the tasking is describe and sketch your feedback target, the one you're going to see here. Now, because really the interest in precognition, certainly purposeful precognition, is long-term, we need to distinguish the sessions. And we use something called a coordinate. Sometimes it's called a target reference number, because it's referring to this specific target. We use 6-digit numbers. Other people might use letters, mixtures. Some people just simply put the date in here. But it's really the tag that connects with this specific target. Simple as that. Now, the feedback target, in the way we're doing this, because everything is online, is what we call a photo site. And let me explain what that is to you. A photo site refers to the particular site, physical site location at the particular time a photo was taken. You're going to see a photograph as your feedback target. So it'll be a photograph of a real place, something that can be photographed and at a specific time. Okay, so that's what the photo site is, but there's a little bit more to it, because your consciousness is expected to move to that site at the time the photo was taken and describe and or sketch what can be readily verified or inferred from the photo. So that's what's key. I'm not particularly interested, and you see your judge won't be particularly interested, what's 1,000 feet away from the site, what's not visible, because the judge, remember the action happens there, will not be able to know that. When he's doing the judging, he'll have your transcript, he'll have the two possible targets. And so we want what's readily verified or easily inferred from the photo. Now, what is very important are these first impression gestalts, because that's the kind of thing that when you look at a photo, hits you first thing, grabs you. And frankly, this could be anything from your entire nervous system. The information that you can get, consciousness uses your entire nervous system. So you can get the visuals, you get sounds, you get dimensions, and we usually think of dimensions compared to your body size, you know, big, small, tiny. Sounds, smells, taste, tactile sensations, emotions, anything that you can become conscious of can be part of your description. So that's what a photo sight is, a lot more than a photo. Now let's talk once again about this analysis judging phase. Remember, the target is the feedback photo site, period. However, there are two possible ones. So this is the judge. It's up to the judge to really rank these and say, oh yeah, one is really so good. How could it be that good? Well, the viewer got the information from the feedback session and did a good job of describing it. So he'll indicate which one of the two, and we'll show you how shortly. You judge them both. It's important to judge them both, but in the ideal situation, one has a high score, the other would have a low score. So really, the idea of all of this, once you accept what we know to be true, namely that precognition exists, the idea is very simple. This is an application of the fact that you can share information from the future with something that happens earlier, the remote viewing session. When you say, no, we can't see yours, Brett, you're seeing my screen, aren't you? I mean, I'm not going to go on if I'm sure you're seeing my screen. Please, somebody put in the chat box or something that you're seeing my screen. Or if you can't, I obviously need to fix that. Are you seeing my screen? Lila, you seeing my screen? Put it in the chat box. Somebody. Please, I see Brett. Yes, seeing your screen. Okay, very good. Okay, Brett must have been referring to something else. Okay, so let's go on. As long as there are no questions about this summary or really description of ARV. And this is like most other skills, in fact, virtually all other skills that you learn. Practice, practice, practice makes a big difference. And, you know, doctors refer to what they do as a practice because really they keep learning. They keep staying with the state of the art and getting better and better at it with experience. And I say this is the same thing here where you're maybe becoming more like a precog shaman or something like that. But practice, practice, practice is in fact very important. Now, I want to show you transcripts for both the beginners and the oldies to make some really important points. This was an example, just as we do in these cases, where multiple people had the same target. Usually each individual person in the prediction has a unique target, but here we had multiple ones. And the reason for this is just to show you how personal remote viewing in ARV is. This is a case where you can see a person called this a vehicle. The thing to remember, and even AOL did, which is somehow the intellect, analytical overlay. That's what AOL stands for. Got the sense that the intellect was getting involved as opposed to getting the information through their deep subconscious. Okay, we don't understand exactly how the information comes, but it's not intellectual. It's coming up through your subconscious. And that's what AOL means. And we always just simply put it on the right. Started, got this kind of thing, got the sense of a vehicle, spiraling, not perfect, but you can see it looked like they really were picking up information from this side. And I think a judge would give it reasonable credit. How about this one? Okay, picking up clearly the two sides and now getting these spiky things, but not exactly right. The coming up from the subconscious has to go through kind of your being, your personality. And you get to learn a lot about that actually when you watch this. But so this is sort of the communication channel. You'll hear me use that word a lot because it's coming from your deep self and you're communicating with your conscious mind that then puts it down on a transcript. So this is another way. What is so important, and you can see in these examples they do it, you simply report what your sub provides. When you're remote viewing, you are basically a witness and a reporter. And that is the mode, that's the mode you're in. You witness what your sub provides, you get it down on a transcript. Notice these others have had a combination of words and sketches, and that's what most people get. Words, which are ideas about the site, the target come up, and then there are images, usually partial images come up. But sometimes some people just simply get words. Well, here was a slight sketch, but the words. But I wanted to point out specifically here, sound of fabric flapping in the wind, to remind you that all of your senses are active and should be sort of listening, if you will, and can be activated for you to put things down on your transcript. And this one, again, makes the point of just put what you sub, no thinking that this might be, didn't even put porcupine, certainly at the time didn't know or should even be thinking about what it is. But here you can see captured again, this characteristic that you see on the rope, but somehow put it on the body, and also an indication of the sound. So you can see how this information indeed it gets transmitted and then can get put down on transcripts. Here was a coordinate. This may be what we call an ideogram, which starts things off. Now, you've seen in these examples the level of words. We work hard not to name high-level things like, Eiffel Tower is an analytical overlay. You're more likely to get dimensions like triangle, things like metal, low-level the kind of words maybe a child would use for describing something that didn't know the name of what it was. And that is the way the subconscious seems to prefer to communicate. Okay. No questions? Very good. Let's go on to this topic: independence, free will, and entanglements. I found this one, and I started with this because, at least in my experience, it's hard to find a creature that just seems to be more independent than kittens and cats. And here's one that is clearly entangled with some yarn, but, and you get the sense that it did that in its own free will. But we're obviously going to get into that in more detail. And what we're really interested in is entanglements between consciousness and maybe entanglement between minds. And hey, in ARV, when you think about it, you're entangling with your own mind at two different times. So this idea of entangled minds is absolutely absolutely critical here. So here's, let me read this one to you, cartoons. Do you believe our destinies are determined by the stars? Nah. Oh, I do. Really? How come? Life's a lot more fun when you're not responsible for your actions. So responsibility here is a key element of kind of free will. If everything is predetermined and predestined, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Then in a way you can feel you don't have any responsibility for anything. And I don't think that's a way any of us really want to live or want others to live. Now, here is a quote going back to like hundreds AD. The robber of your free will, writes Epictetus, does not exist. In other words, whether you like it or not, you have your own free will available to you all the time. Now, there are people who right now are arguing against that. In fact, our speaker last Monday, Ruth Kastner, was talking about some people who claim we really do not have free will. Now, I'm going to argue the opposite, and you'll understand my point of view. Plus, I think we all know intuitively we have it, but we'll get into more detail. How about this one? The entanglement between hearts. And there is a parallel between love and the entanglement of people. This entanglement is like quantum physics talks about that a lot. And it's something which is now actually well known in terms of the physical world. And I believe, and I think most of you will believe, that there's that kind of entanglement in, let's call it, consciousness space. You can be entangled with other people, other minds, and we don't know how. It is indeed very, very mysterious. Now, here's something which most of the time when conversations like this are happening, there is this dichotomy, this choice. It's either free will or determinism. And I think that is a false way of putting this. Can this issue that we're talking about, free will, with our limited language, definitions, and logic that we have, be actually an important indicator of a larger, deeper aspect of reality? I put it in those terms because this subject comes up over and over and over, appropriately, when we do precognition. When you have a deja vu that is so real to you, when the telephone rings and you know it's someone you haven't talked to for 20 years before you pick up the phone. Okay, how did you know that? How does all of this fit together? Well, there's something deeper going on. And quantum mechanics says virtually the same sorts of things, that normal logic just doesn't work. Here's something from Werner Heisenberg. You've maybe heard of the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. Very much involved in the early quantum mechanical days, when that level of the new physics, new paradigm in physics, was just coming into being. And these guys had to think about all of that stuff. And here's one of his major statements about it concerning language. The problems of language here are really serious. We wish to speak in some way about the structure of the atoms, but we cannot speak about atoms in ordinary language. Okay? You just cannot do that. You know, we used to think of atoms as very hard, like things, you know, that you knew exactly where they are and they could move around. That is not the language you can use in quantum mechanics. It's just not the way the real physical world works. You know, I'm hearing my dog. Actually, we're babysitting for my daughter's dogs. Here's another statement. The conception of objective reality, okay, the normal materialistic world, the conception of objective reality has thus evaporated because of quantum mechanics into now this is beautiful, the transparent clarity of mathematics. And the theory of quantum mechanics, just like the theory of general relativity, are mathematical, and they do marvelous in terms of their predictions of the physical world that we live in. This happens to be the uncertainty principle. And one of the other interesting things about at least one of the formulations of quantum mechanics, it has this symbol, little I in it, which is the square root of -1. Now, try to figure out what the square root of -1 means. And all of that leads to the fact that the real universe is quite different than the way we normally think of it. Not only is the universe stranger than we think, it is stranger than we can think. Putting out the idea that maybe the intellect cannot figure this out. Interesting, and I don't know if that's true or not. The intellect is a marvelous thing as well, but that was something that Heisenberg put out there. Stranger than we can think. Now, I don't want to get too technical here, even philosophically, but there is a theorem proved by Gödel many, many years ago that's called the incompleteness theorem. And it basically says that, well, this is an example. This statement cannot be proved, and he's done mathematics. But the implications of all this, and close it, thank you. The implications of all this are the following. Within any, now he proved this within a mathematical system, but I believe that it, and notice now, the physical world is very well described with mathematics. What he proved is that within any mathematical system, there are statements that might be true, okay, mathematical statements which are true, but which nevertheless cannot be proved. Okay, this was just quite an achievement to be able to mathematically prove. So that's sort of like if you consider the world to be made up of integers, you know, you need a bigger world to include fractions, and then you need even a bigger world to include irrational numbers like pi. And I think we are living in just that kind of world. What we observe is not nature itself, but nature exposed to our method of questioning, measurement, and consciousness is doing the measuring. So I'm now leading us to consciousness being the fundamental. Now you can't prove that, but consciousness itself is this bigger system. And it's within that bigger system that we have our free will, we have our independence. Consciousness cannot be accounted for in physical terms, for consciousness is absolutely fundamental. It cannot be accounted for in terms of anything else. And this is Schrödinger, one of the other founders. In fact, his name is associated with the key equation. And Max Planck as well. I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness. We cannot get beyond consciousness. Now, these guys thought about what was going on when they were finding that quantum mechanics was explaining things that couldn't be explained with Newton's equations. And they were thinking real hard about this, and there are their conclusions about consciousness. Now, we're now getting to the fact that quantum physics thus reveals a basic oneness of the universe. Kind of rather remarkable that these guys trying to explain the physical world are really getting into what you have to say is spirituality. The idea that we are one, that everything is connected at some deep spiritual level, seems to be one of the most fundamental tenets of kind of spirituality, which then led to religions, which says things like that as well, though they put a lot more on it, as you know. But I'm talking about deep spirituality, the oneness of the universe, that everything is entangled and connected. Now, here's a model, and, I couch it in different terms, where the UCC stands for the universe of collective consciousness. I use a circle just to include, because I think this is what we see in our world when we say we have this oneness. It's oneness in consciousness. And in this circle is everything that consciousness touches, past, present, future, right? There's a oneness. So time is just in there as well. Physical universe is in there as well. Now, it has to be a circle without a boundary, because as soon as you try to think of something outside, guess what? It goes inside because you thought about it. Your consciousness had an experience of that thought. Or if you have a feeling, oh, that can't be in there, well, you had the feeling. And that's true of any other sentient being that is conscious, okay? So this contains all of consciousness. Okay, so anything in here where we try to bring out one thing, like, the desk I'm sitting in front of, the screen I'm sitting in front of. In fact, the whole physical universe is a thing. But things cannot ever be completely separated because it's a circle without a boundary. You can't have sharp boundaries. So the basic assumption of everything that consciousness touches is in this UCC, and there's no boundary, immediately leads to this uncertainty principle, like Heisenberg. So I'm just really putting together a little model here that explains sort of conclusions that lots and lots of people have come to. But now we have this uncertainty is introduced, but it gets even deeper than that. The entanglement with the universe of collective consciousness, the oneness, is still there. You have to be entangled since you're not separate from it, okay? And that entanglement comes through this fuzzy boundary. At least that's a reasonable way of thinking about it, just sort of pictorially and conceptually. So we're still entangled with the oneness. There's no way to get away from that. And then there has to be, and the term that's closest to what we're used to is energy. There has to be entanglement energy involved and a communication channel. Now, look at this, to maintain the illusion of separateness. So we got into this by trying to bring one thing, whatever that is, out, okay? And we want to maintain it. My desk stays here. Well, we'll call that entanglement energy. So it's still entangled with the UCC. So we brought in really all the concepts which are in the materialistic world, but recognizing it comes from something much deeper, much higher, and all that is, whatever word you want to use. But this is the idea that gets involved there. Now, see, this leads directly to you're a conscious thing, right? Here you are. And you got a fuzzy boundary. Where do you start? Where do you end? Hey, radiation is going out from you. Is that still part of you? You have all kinds of bacteria in you. Do you want to consider that part of you? If you start thinking about you got a fuzzy boundary. You won't question that. Your memories, your connections to the future. Okay, so you live in a physical world where time is an important thing. Okay, so in our physical normal world, time is important. But now think about this. When we go through time, okay, so now we're in a different place, things have changed. The time varying fuzzy boundary, okay, introduces creativity and free will. And all of this is in cooperation, since you're never separate from it, with the UCC. The fact that there are uncertainties here is exactly where you have your free will. There are choices which will put you in different places in the UCC, but that's up to you. So I really feel that this model is one which, in fact, shows and illuminates what we really mean when we say free will. We are not robots. We have the ability to choose from all the possibilities which are within the UCC. Now, this communication channel is important. I mentioned it earlier because you're never separate from the UCC, and it's a two-way channel. The UCC seems to be very supportive. When you put requests down with simple things like intention, you do all kinds of complicated things, right? I mean, walking across the street, if you think about all the things involved in your body to do that, all the muscles, etc., it's kind of amazing. And that comes from a simple intention from your conscious mind, and then you go ahead and do it. We'll talk more about intention. And without uncertainty, notice without this fuzzy boundary, you would not be in a position to have experiences of choices to be made in time. There would be no experiences. I mean, if it was no uncertainty, you're done. Okay, it's all done. I want to connect this with ARV. The UCC, Universe of Collective Consciousness, includes you and all of your now conscious moments. So let's think of these as being all of your now conscious moments. Some are in the past, some are in the future, right? The UCC has that. One of the things which we can do as human beings, and this is a good thing, is that you can ignore events. See, event is just a collection. So this could be a baseball game that you went to. This could be dinner. And we give them meaning, but they're things which come out, and an event is just some sort of meaningful thing to you. But notice, and isn't it fortunate that we can ignore a lot of events? You don't want to remember every single event that happened in the past, every one of your now moments. So you can decrease entanglement. It really never goes to zero, but you're not consciously aware of it in the same sense as you're aware of other things that are going on now. Okay, let's connect this now to ARV. Well, you can increase entanglement as well between two events. And let's imagine that one event is a remote viewing session. And the other event, guess what, is your feedback session. Now, just like other sessions in other events in your past, emotion, for example, can make them more memorable. Happiness, think of a real happy moment, and something will come to mind. Moments of deep love stay with you for a very, very long time, forever. And so, indeed, your consciousness can create a handshake with these two events and can enhance the entanglement. And they're actually equations and stuff in the physical world to enhance quantum mechanical entanglement. And I think all of us are working at a very personal level to learn how to increase this entanglement in our precognitive work. But indeed, you can do it. Practice, practice, practice is one of the keys, but there are clearly others. Okay, so Einstein said the only reason for time is so that everything doesn't happen at once. Okay, so we're moving through this thing we call time, which is in the UCC, and we get to move through it moment by moment. But there's another perspective on this, which I want to share. Time isn't precious at all. Earlier I said, yeah, it's so important to us. But he's here, and this is totally, time isn't precious at all because it is an illusion. What you perceive as precious is not time, but the one point that is out of time, the now. This is the idea of the eternal now. Now, 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 now. You know, how long is this now that I'm experiencing right now? I mean, you know what? That has a fuzzy boundary around it. But in a real sense, it is sort of outside of time. It exists right now. And that is precious indeed. The more you are focused on time, past and future, the more you miss the now, the most precious thing there is. This connects up with free will very directly, because the only time, I have to use the word time, that you get to exercise this thing we call free will is in the now. Okay? In this now moment where you're still, right? You're connected to the UCC in this now moment, but with that connection and with this sort of uncertainty connected to the UCC, this is when your free will operates. This is when creativity operates. When you pick up, and it's sort of strange because you are creating it. It's you who are making these choices and creating it, and then inserting it in the UCC at the same time, right? Because the UCC includes all of your conscious moments. And then what you do at the next conscious moment, the next conscious moment, your free will is available to you in every now moment. And sometimes we just choose not to use it. And yes, we act very mechanically, and that's fine. And yeah, in fact, you're doing that of your own free will. Okay, let's now connect this more and more to remote viewing and associative remote. Here's, and this is actually a paper that Joe McMonagle, I think almost all of you know him, but he's probably the best public remote viewer in the world. And Ed May, who is a scientist that's been with this program since SRI, he took over after Pudov left, but that was what, and he stayed with it and published all kinds of documents, including some that have recently been declassified. So they've done a lot of work and a lot of work together, and this is what they've concluded. What is clear, at least to those of us on our long-established team, is that intention, attention, and expectation play a very important role in the success of both application and research of remote viewing. So this thing we call intention, which you have a sense of, but I don't think we pay enough attention to what that really means. And I'm going to ask you right now to do a little exercise. Choose a hand. You know, if you're right-handed, choose your right hand. If you're left-handed, choose your left hand. If you're ambidextrous, choose one. And shortly, but I don't want you to do it now, I'm going to ask you with just simple intention to touch your nose, okay? Now, notice, already I've set you up with an intention to touch your nose, and the fact of doing it, however, the actualization of that, which would go into the UCC, and this intention which activates your whole body, and that activation comes from the UCC, hasn't happened yet, right? Now, there's going to be a moment when that does happen, and by your free will and choice, I want you now to pay attention to your own consciousness, and when you feel ready, pay attention to your consciousness and touch your nose with one finger when you feel ready, and see if you can pick up this moment of intention which activates you, which leads to this connection with the deep communication channel of actually doing something. So actually do that now and pay attention and see if you can pick up that intention. It's very subtle, isn't it? It's very subtle. This idea actually comes from Sean McNamara, who is going to be talking to us about PK and how to do it. He's written a book on this. And he does exercises where it really makes it clear that just saying I'm going to do it isn't enough. Talking about it isn't enough. There's a moment when this communication happens. And when we talk about intention, and the same thing with expectation, you know, you can't say, I just expect it, you know, that sort of thing. There's a deep feeling associated with expectation, which as you do this over and over again, practice, 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 you start just getting to know it better. And then you get to apply it, because the intention to describe and sketch your feedback target, that's action. You then listen and you put things down on a piece of paper. Well, you want that intention to be communicated deeply with the UCC through your subconscious. Now, I put this symbol here. Notice our cue is always something like describe and sketch your, because it's like the tasker is talking to you. But what's so important about all of this is to make it very personal. So this is just the symbol maybe for your psi self, which has a boundary. You can build on it. You do what you want on it. I have another whole talk on the best of the best and what they do, and they always tend to be pushing themselves. Practice, 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 but doing what's just a little beyond what they can do now. And so you can grow this, but it's all very personal. Okay, so it's all very personal. Now, beliefs come into this as well. I mean, do you believe at a very deep level what we're talking about here? And you need in your own mind, in your own deep self, to put all this together so it makes sense to you. The best I can do is put it in a context that makes sense to me, and that I hope I can share with you. But you're the one who creates your precognition, okay? And precognition is pre-knowing what's happening here. But when you're here, you're really doing retrocausality. You're sharing information earlier. So the present now moment, okay? The present now moment's here, and the present now moments here clearly influence both the past and the future. Precognition, retrocausality, I mean, that's kind of amazing. That means your future can influence your now moments. Very important implications for that. Now, the you we talk about, right, which is more than just your psi you, obviously, is a deep and important question. And I can't give you an answer to that in language at all. But Goddard said, your opinion of yourself is your most important viewpoint. You are infinitely greater than you think you are. You cannot teach a man anything. You can only help him find it within himself. The stuff we're talking about here, both of these are sort of really good bottom line statements. You're greater than you think you are, and that's probably true always. As you grow and grow and grow, until you merge totally with the UCC, in which case you kind of disappear, there's always more. There's always a bigger potential you. And you have to find that out for yourself at the cutting edge stuff that we're talking about now. Okay, anybody want to comment, question about that? We never can actually touch anything at all. Well, in some ways, that's right, Lila. All we do is have an experience, and that other thing is there. I happen to think matter is conscious as well, because you're interacting with a thing you want to separate and call matter, and we use the words in a materialistic world that we're touching it. But if you get more precise, you're sharing consciousness. It's certainly, when you touch something, the other thing has some reaction as well. And it has now moments as well. But it is all in consciousness space. Any other comments, questions? Okay. How can anything not be considered? Exactly right. Exactly right. But you've come a long way to be able to say that you believe, and I know you do, that matter comes from consciousness in some fashion. The UCC is the most fundamental. So indeed, matter itself comes from there. And I think the little model that I showed you, which I hope that helps get others to get that whole idea. Very good. Okay. I'm stretching a little bit. You guys can stretch as well. And we're now going to get into a whole different mode, which is the feedback session. And what we've been doing now, up to now, touches consciousness, intuitive touches other things, but we've been talking about it. Now we want to get into that space where we really do retrocausality, get the feeling of that. So this is the part we're about to do now. And it really is a kind of precognitive, when you think of it starting with remote viewing, it's precognitive telepathy where you are communicating with your future self. I mean, thinking about that way, I think it's just so cool. The feedback session now has this retrocausality effect on the earlier RV session. The kind of information that we see translated is kind of remarkable. And it really is retrocausal. And now this is where you're going to know the truth. And this communication channel, you know, hey, the intellect is part of it, but I don't think it's the most important part of it. The most important part of it is at this level of feeling, being in the now moment with the target, experiencing and enjoying the truth that you're seeing the target, and having the intent to do this sharing with your earlier self. And again, it's intent not at this intellectual level, at this kind of real subtle level of causing action. And words, I don't know any better words. I think you have to find it for yourself. So, okay, that's a mistake on my part. Let me fix that. The coordinate that we're talking about is 972,364. Notice I said it out loud. And those of you who did it, I think you should say it out loud, because it acts as a type of a beacon. Okay, so we're doing feedback for 972,364. I have to keep facing forward. And the outcome was yes for this, and that was randomly associated, in this case, with photosite B. So remember, there were two choices. One choice is called photosite A, the other is called photosite B. The computer randomly associates those. So there's no front loading, that sort of thing. And that was it. Now, how do each of us get our feedback target? Well, we're using this winning entanglement protocol, and it really is user-friendly. It comes to you via email with a tasking, and the tasking is, for example, here. So this was the tasking, which was done. Well, I sent this, obviously, I just brought it up today, but it was done a month ago. So I guess I did it again. And here is the event. Will any horse win the Triple Crown 2008? And the winning side was yes, so you'll have that kind of information. And in fact, so I added the comment, justify, he won the Triple Crown. So this, in fact, I see. I'm sorry, I got a little confused here. Let me clarify this. I did this morning because this is the feedback tasking that you get. The original event tasking was done a month ago, and that was when this event statement was put in, but for the feedback, it brings it up again. In fact, here was the date it was set up, and these are just for the database, it just keeps it. But here was the date. June 9th was when the event was done. And so the winning side was yes, justify, won it. Then in your email, all you would do would be to click here, and you'd put in your email address, because everybody has their own unique one, and then up would come your feedback target, just like this. So the feedback target now very clearly for 972364 was this goose on grass, I guess, if you're going to summarize it. And then you do your feedback session, and we're going to do some. And then you would type in here your feelings, ideas, anything else that's going on, because all of this information is saved and available to you in the future. So it can be used to sort of guide your progress, your precog journey. So we save everything for the benefit of the viewer who's interested in this. Okay. So let me talk a little bit about your transcript, and then I then would like you to actually do it, talking out loud. And it's always good, you know, in the remote viewing world, they always like when you're doing a session to talk out loud. And I think that's good for the feedback as well. Just another kind of input to your subconscious to be shared with the UCC. Just brightens it up. But I also just want to talk here a little bit about this one, because up here, and this example is what we're going to do later, and I want you to understand it. You see these A's and B's? The A's indicate that during the judging, and I believe Anita did self-judging, she believed that there was a good match to A. Here's an example where there's a good match to A and B. Now remember, this is photo site B was the winner, the correct one. And in her case, she actually used Joe McMonagle's approach, which is great, which is 50%. And I'm going to tell you this more later, but I just want you to understand that she did that here. Which happens to be gestalts. He believes gestalts are very important. And then counting the number of A's for A and the number of B's. So she got 33 A's, 12 B's. That ended off with the little formula I'll show you a little bit later, to give her a 6 for A and a 4 for B. Now, turns out this was a miss, and I put it up first because how to deal with misses is one of the biggest challenges, because at first you might feel a little frustration, which is fine, you know, you're a normal human being, but I believe they are opportunities to learn, because and you know, lots of people say that there's more to be learned from a miss a hit, because you now have an opportunity to just learn. Now, the key thing here is, since B was the correct one, is to focus on the geese and the good stuff you got, and look, did you miss anything, and add something. That's where the learning comes in. This is your opportunity to learn. So with those kind of general guidance, Anita, you want to give this a shot and do your feedback session?
Oh, okay. I'll start.
And you know something, you might be able to mark on this. Why don't you see?
Yes.
I'd like to see if you can mark. Last time someone did it accidentally. I have a thing here that says annotate. Do you have an annotate on your screen? Because I think it would be fun, because when you have your transcript in front of you at home, I think you want to mark it up. You want to circle the good stuff, or you want to do things on a new sheet of paper.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, I've got an annotate. I've got a pencil. Okay, cool.
Wonderful.
Let us see. Okay, I got bird. I actually draw the bird, but I think why I chose photo site A instead of B is because somehow the bird didn't look right to me, the neck of the bird. But
Okay,
If
let me tell
I,
you what I want to do now. I want to interrupt you. Again, this is a class, right? I want to
yes.
interrupt you because when you're doing your feedback session, um,
Mm,
I think this 5 second rule should be a 1 second rule. Notice you
mm,
immediately went into a negative. And
mm,
this thing started, I know I did it with my kids, and my kids are doing it with their kids with food. You know, if something dropped and, you know, the floor is not too dirty or anything, you use the 5 second rule. You tell them, okay, pick it up quickly and you can still, you know, eat it. Um, this is a little bit like if life gives you lemons, make lemonade. You know, cheer up. Don't focus on the negative. Stay with the positive. And that's just what you did. You mentioned the bird at first. You got that. Stick with that. Stick with the good stuff.
yes. I did get round, which makes me think of the bird's body. Um, under IL, I got dragon. I know geese, the sound they make sounds like dragons.
Hmm.
Um, I wonder why I marked that A. That is weird to
Exactly.
me.
That's the other thing you learned is you found some good stuff here, but you made errors in judging.
In judgment,
Isn't
yes.
that important to learn so that next
Yes.
time you'll judge better?
Yes. I'll look at how I judge differently, probably.
Yeah.
Um,
Touch your screen or use your drawing pencil.
yes, yes. Okay, yeah, there's the word dragon in IRL. Um, some of these things at first didn't make sense to me, like industrial smell, charcoal, oil. Um, I think I associated that with photosite
You
A.
see, you went to the negative again.
Yeah, the thing is, now looking at it with the feedback, I learn how I associate. Because as a kid, we had geese that always used to trample around the workshop on the farm, and the charcoal smells, the industrial idea, that comes to mind now.
Mm.
Um, so one learns to get to know your own subconscious, what it associates things with.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm.
You see what else there is. The feathers on the bird, yeah, at the bottom, the patterns, that hits me.
Okay.
Um,
Yep. And I see so many other animal-like things here, but you did give yourself a 4 on that side. So, you
mm,
know, you saw a lot of good things. So what else would you do? You know, if you're at home now, do
mm.
the feedback session now as much as you can, and uh,
Um, what else? I've got animal. Oh,
circle it.
that's animals. Is animal. Um, Let me
Okay.
just see. Mm, what else do I see?
Dog or ice. Uh,
Dark light. Um, temperature, snow, winter.
got white. Mm-hmm,
These
mm-hmm.
snow geese, they're usually associated with icy areas.
Right.
Um, the sound, wind.
You got all that. Right, right,
Um,
right.
what else? Diving up and down like a dolphin. That's the way they walk.
Right, right.
That's quite interesting.
And you look at
Um,
that and look at the one eye,
yes, yes,
you know, details like that matter. And it's amazing how the sub will give you that.
yes,
Your
yes.
owl here. Um, yeah.
And now the thing I draw here at the bottom somehow makes me think of the geese's feet. I don't know why that is.
These.
Um, the ear at the bottom makes me think of the geese's feet. Um,
Interesting. Also, it looks a lot like the feathers. So you see, you're getting
yes,
you're getting into this, and notice what all this is doing. You're paying attention to this picture, in a lot more detail now because it's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And look
Mm-hmm.
at it. All of us can look at it now. You know, in
Yes, and I
fact,
think this way you can form new connections with association with your subconscious going through mistakes like this.
that
Um,
yes, yes. I'm
if
even
you made mistakes. Mm.
looking at these lines here, and I'm looking at the lines here. Your sub might have been in some way trying to give you that.
Yes.
And stuff here too. And, you know, all the good stuff. Thank your sub. Gee, thank you for giving me so much. Now
Oh.
go to, and next time, what do you wish it had given you that you can now train the communication channel? I'm looking at your colors and I don't see green.
I don't see green either.
So,
Definitely it could have given me more the straight out colors rather than the details.
okay. But would be green and white, you know, would be one of the big.
Yes,
And so right now, and this is the
that would
time
be
to do it,
nice.
you know, we're trying to get better and better, right? Well, the feedback session is the perfect time to basically get quiet, intend to intend to communicate with both your subconscious all the way down to the communication channel with the UCC, where this information was down there anyway. The UCC knows green. You're putting it down there now, but put it down in a way where something similar happens. It'll give it to you at the next remote viewing session. And so I would say green and really feel the green. Look at the green. You may come up with better ways of communicating, but you see what I'm saying? It's the
Yes,
feedback session when you can improve things.
absolutely. Yes.
Okay, thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Marty.
Let me see now. Last time this was done by accident, so I spent just a little bit of time. Okay, so we now cleared it. Let me go to the next person. Oh wait, maybe I need to give back. How do I get control back here? Okay, I think I have to turn that off. Okay, so that was the 5-second rule. Now, one other thing I should say, and you mixed it in with the feedback session. After the feedback session is the time to go back and think about whether there's anything to learn about the judging. Notice you brought that into the feedback session, and that's going to happen. You know, I mean, it's okay. But I also would recommend that after the feedback session, and you write an EOS. A lot of people do it on another sheet of paper or whatever, EOS FB, end of session feedback. You know, you might think a little bit about whether you felt you judged it correctly or not. And you may very well say, yep. Or like you found one example where, you know, you would have done it differently.
Yes.
Okay. This is Evelyn. Um, I don't see you here. Okay, so let me see if I can do one for Evelyn. Right. Okay, so if I were Evelyn, now she would have more familiarity with this than I would. Um, let's see how she scored this. Okay, so she gave B a 3.5. We're going to talk about the 0 to 7 scale. 3.5 says this was just wagerable. So she actually would get a hit on this and a 2. But notice she did get green. Oh, let me do the annotation now. And so this would be the kind of thing that I would recommend. There you go, is the green. That was really good. Yep, a little orange. Look at that on the beak. Oh my God, thank you, sir. And gray, sure. And I don't know what that, but you gave it an A and a B, an A and a B. She would know, and you would say thank you. Notice the little B's versus big B's. That's important when you do your judging. You know, some are marginal, and then of course some don't fit at all, so you don't put anything down. Land, yes, yes. Outdoor, oh yeah. Energy, I don't know if it's moving or not, but she felt it was. Bio, wow, really nice. Airy, yeah. Uh-huh, uh-huh. And then house, I don't see too many houses here, but I remember I'm just focusing on this here. I'm looking at it, taking it in. I see these vertical lines, you know, maybe it was good, maybe it wasn't, but now I'm focusing on it. In fact, I would like to add, and you can add these things anytime. I wish my sub had done something like this. Oh, sub, that would have been good. That would have been really good. Had you given me, you know, something like that. That kind of geometry would be really, really good here. I don't know, maybe here you were trying to do a beak, but there's kind of a beak, little eye. Just, you know, a little bit more indicator would have been great. You know, this was good, but next time something like this comes up, I would like stuff like that. Okay, so I've added something. I found all kinds of, oh, look at this, puffiness. Oh, yeah, I can sort of feel the puffiness. And I'm almost about to open up the wings here, too, but it's puffy in here. Oh, that's great. You know, words like this, subconscious, you're communicating with this UCC, how beautifully. And let's just get that communication even better. And you need to teach me how, and I'm just trying to tell you the way I see it. But, you know, you can keep giving me hints too by giving me good stuff like you are here. And we're both learning. Okay, let me clear this one. And I need to close that. And let's go to the next one. Okay, now here I decided to write this. Oh, because this was one of those where notice A was really high, which was a miss, and the other one was low. So again, and I said it earlier, but you do your full feedback session before doing evaluation of the analysis, judging in any detail. Now, you know that. You know you're going to do it, but to enhance the learning, really, I recommend doing the feedback here. So again, let me do that. And all of this, as you can imagine, is all very personal. So each of you will do it in your own way. This is just sort of, I don't know what to call it, a baseline to develop your own. Okay, so I'm looking at this. Oh, look at this geese. Yeah, I'm getting a good sense of what it is. Let's see. Frosty. Interesting, because when I see Frosty, I think of white, but she put that with an A. But that's me, so I don't know what she would have done. Person, well, again, that's not real close. She got a B here. Well, maybe for the person or the shape, not sure, but I will circle it. Flat parts, yes, very good. Look at these flat parts here. Thank you, sub. That was good, perfect. Plants, a little B, I would call grass plants. Thank you. You were trying to tell me about the grass. Did I get the color? Well, you got white. Notice, wow, you didn't even mark white as a B. So already I'm looking forward to the judging, but I've learned something right here. You know, sub, hey, there's a lot of white there. Why don't you give me that? And I didn't get green. Let me take a moment. And as best I can, transmit in a way that you'll understand what green is. So that's green. I'm trying to get in touch. My subconscious through the communication channel is sharing green. So green will come up when green happens again. That's green. Hey, I'm doing white too. White. So this is white. Yes, green, white, orange. Okay, I hope this is communicating with you what I would intend and hope and maybe even expect to get next time. Okay. So I hope you're getting it. I believe you are getting the idea here. Hey, Lila. You're still here? Why don't you turn on your mic? And
Yes, Lila's here.
okay, and let me clear this first, wait, and then let you do the annotations. We'll see if that works. Let's sort of clear this one. Okay, and now you should be able to do drawing on here.
Oh, oh, yeah. Okay, what would you like me to draw?
I'd like you to do a feedback session. If you were home and this was
Okay.
in front of you, show us how you do your feedback session. So do the feedback session.
Well, I start at the top and I just go through my categories to see if any of them match. And so on this one, I didn't really feel like I had a whole lot. You can see my scores are very close, but I just felt that the ideograms were more along the lines of phototype B, which is the goose.
See, again, you're explaining it.
Yeah,
Don't explain it,
yeah.
do it. Like, okay, oh, look at those ideograms. Thank you, sub. You know, you're not doing the feedback for anybody else but you and your deeper self and your communication channel and all that. So why don't you just pretend you're doing it now that way?
Well, okay. So so I go through each one and I see gritty and soft. Well, soft, yeah, the feathers are very soft. That's great. My colors, white. I got a lot of neutral colors. I didn't get very much else.
Okay, teach yourself green. Teach yourself green.
Oh, yes. I usually do write down green. Sometimes my sub doesn't give me the really easy stuff. It makes me work.
Okay, well, that's an interesting observation. And why don't you right now? See, now's the time to say, oh, sub, this is something I've observed in the past. Why don't we work on you giving me, you know, more accurate colors? Like in this case, green would have been terrific.
Yeah,
And
give
this
me
is,
the easy stuff.
yeah. And maybe, you know what? Maybe
uh-huh.
because you think it's hard, it's not. You see what I'm saying? This is the time for you to get into your belief system, all of those things. And you might even ask yourself, why didn't you do it? You know, and probably give you an answer. Remember, you're quiet, you're at home all by yourself. This is the time to come up with ways of improving.
Okay. Well, I really like my dimensions, though, that downward.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one. Downward, large, bulky.
See, I would circle all of that. Yeah.
Okay.
But you know.
I do that. I underline when I do my feedback. I underline them.
Okay, that's
really
terrific.
like. And I also add, yeah. So I would add the color green for sure. I could add orange as well. My dynamics, motorized. Well, they are motorized. I mean, they move.
That's right.
Now, it's not moving right now, but it had to move to get to that spot.
Are you drawing on the screen?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Okay. I just want to make sure we weren't missing anything. That's fine. You just do your feedback session like you would.
Yeah. Zigzag. They zigzag around. They don't normally just go in a straight line, so they zigzag around. Stuck together. Well, they're feathers.
Yeah. Very good.
A conglomerate would have been kind of the same thing as stuck together. It's a
Mm-hmm.
conglomeration, feathers
Absolutely.
gathered together, the same. I had that feeling of something gathered together.
Mm-hmm.
So, familiar and fun. Definitely, they're familiar and they're kind of fun. Although geese can chase you and nip at you. So I don't know how much fun that is. And then my ideograms down here at the bottom, I guess I kind of sort of drew on the far right, the squiggly lines. If you turn them
Right. They
right.
sort of look like that, or
they sort of
this,
like
or
sure, yeah.
And in fact,
And
this curvature.
That curve, yeah, is the backside
Mm-hmm.
of the goose.
Yep.
That post thing with the thing on the house, that was a birdhouse. Believe it or not.
Oh, okay.
That's I wrote. I felt that there was a birdhouse, and that's what that is—a birdhouse on a post.
Interesting.
Yeah, I just didn't. So
you didn't mark it?
No, didn't
and
mark
you didn't
it.
Mark conglomerate?
No, I didn't. Did I?
No, and that's
but
good
I did
to
mark.
learn.
But I did mark the sounds talking because they do talk to us.
Oh yeah, they squawk.
They squawk. Yep. So I got that feeling.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Well, I guess it's a hit for me.
And that was a hit, absolutely.
Yeah.
Though when the numbers are that close, sometimes you have to decide whether or not you want to turn them both into 3.5s or 3s, or go with it. And you went with it, and it was a hit. So it's your choice. Your free will did that. And when you're in the middle of this that you're using your free will.
Yes.
Based on history and things like that. Also something that you do, and I'm just pointing this out to other people, you put enough down so that it'll help you remember what the two possible targets are. Some people don't do that on purpose. Some people do it. Personal choice. The viewer is in charge.
I like to, and before I do my feedback, I get my transcript out and I look at it, and I look at those A and Bs, and I visualize my target coming up on the screen before I hit the button to see what the feedback is. Hopefully, by impressing upon my computer, this is what I want to see.
Which one? But you know which one. You don't try to visualize the other. You try to visualize.
Well, no, I don't. This is before I actually get the feedback picture. I look at my two possible targets, and the one that if I don't have a pass, if I chose one over the other, I visualize that one. I remember what it looks like. Oh yeah, the white goose sitting on the grass. That's what I want to see when I hit this. When I hit the button to get my feedback.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Yeah. So you visualize, like in this case, you would not have visualized this one. You would have visualized only this one.
Yes, exactly.
Interesting. Okay.
I preload.
And expecting to see
myself.
it. Yeah. Interesting. Expected. Okay. Okay.
So there's my expectation.
Yeah. No, okay. Interesting. That I've never heard that before. And again, making this personal is a good thing. So good. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Oh, okay. Let's see if I don't remember if I had another one. Nope, that's it. Well, okay. Anybody want to? Okay. Right. Yeah. The tasking. Anyway, want to make comments. This is, in my opinion, this feedback session is the most important part of ARV. And no matter how often I say it, it's difficult to get over when you're here, to get this feeling that it's over. And that's part of the work. It's just starting, because this is where you impress the information in the UCC, if you will. That's why this model of the UCC just seems to tie all of this together, because precognition is really connected to retrocausality, and it's the feedback session where you get this retrocausality effect. And so you really want to pay a lot of attention to it. You want to use it for your learning because you know the truth. You know, we don't know the truth that often in our lives about the future. The only real truth we know is in the now moment. No one can tell you what you're experiencing right now is false. Whatever you're experiencing is the absolute truth. But when you make a prediction about the future and now you know the truth of it, you can use that. Okay, fair enough. Let's move forward. We'll do a new prediction. I've shown you this one before, but I want to get you in again. You might loosen up a little bit. We're now going to do a brand new prediction, okay, as a remote viewer, but the communication channel is going to be with yourself from your future time that puts the information down in the UCC, and the RVer can grab it from there. So you're doing information sharing, and right now, with your free will, right, you get to only do things in the now. Right now, you're intending to do your remote viewing session and intending to get the good information from the truth of the feedback session. Okay, so you're going to describe your target. And this is retrocausal, so I think we've talked about that. Okay, how do I start? How do I get my coordinate, you might ask? Well, again, we're using the same protocol. Email with links is the key thing. So let's do it. Now, here, this morning, I defined this, and you can see I did this at 11:03 a.m., and the computer chose the two targets. And all you have to do now, I've hidden the prediction. I don't really think this is any kind of strong front loading, but some people might think it is. And so I'm not even showing you what the prediction is for. Usually it would be listed here, like for the sport events, so that you could then, when the prediction comes out, you could then wager on it. On some of them, I indicate, you know, it's blind to you. So it depends. There are different ways of doing it. But once you get this in your email, and it's sent by the group manager, so that was me here, all you do is click here, and just to save time, I did that here already for us. This is what would come up. First, you'd put in your email address because they're different for everybody. And then a screen like this comes up, and this is what came up when I did it. And this is the coordinate for all of us. So those of you who, you know, have heard the description of what to do through your RV session and my suggestions, you know, I'm going to give 10 minutes, but some of you like more time, so feel free. Put that on the top of your sheet of paper. And then when we're done, you'll email that to me after the judging. So don't email it to me yet until after you do the judging. But right now, get quiet and do your remote viewing. So this whole idea that consciousness is fundamental, and it is more fundamental than time. Time is really just a thing in the UCC. This idea of outside of space and time, that's an idea. It's in the UCC too, and it has real meaning. Use your coordinate as a beacon. 842 is a beacon. Really say it out loud and do everything you can think of to entangle it with your feedback target, which you're going to get in about a month from now. So, and be creative. In fact, some of you might want to try something which was very successful with one remote viewer, and on their blank sheet of paper, put the chord at the top, the name and that stuff. She put a design on the border, whatever she felt like doing, sort of a doodle design, but her intention was to match that at the feedback time. So that would act as a beat. Other people might take one bite of a chocolate chip cookie, though that may not be a good example since it has to last a month, but they might take a pencil and hold it and do some design on there and use that same pencil at the end. Anyway, you might be creative just to make the connection between the feedback session and the remote viewing session you're doing now stronger. So that's intellectual stuff. When you do it, you've got to do it now at this deeper level and hold a deep intention as you're doing it that this is going to act as a beacon. And then, of course, you're going to do it at your feedback time. So we've talked about this intention, attention, and expectation. So begin to set into that. You're going to set your intention to get a really good description of your feedback target for 432842. You're going to be paying attention to, guess what? To your consciousness. You're expecting your subconscious to give your conscious now moment all kinds of good information about the target. And so you're paying attention to what's coming up from your subconscious. If your intellect comes in, mark it AOL, put it on the right, and move on. That's one of the reasons you write AOL. Okay, there's our cue again. Setting your intention. For the newbies, and I can send you, if you'd like, copies of this piece of paper, but some people just know it well enough. These are all the kinds of things that you could have: textures, colors, smells. But you start out by writing the coordinate here, saying it out loud. You do your name, date, time. The gestalts tend to come up first, and so on this sheet, at least, we put it up here. The ideogram is that squiggle that you saw some people do. Lila did it on the bottom. People develop their own techniques. It's not like one technique is better than the other. You develop a personal technique that's best for you, and that's your responsibility. Okay, and there's room for sketches. Okay, get ready. This cool down period, I'm about to give you 10 minutes. There'll be a hemi-sync, which I hope you can hear, and it'll be in the background. Other than that, we'll be as quiet as we can be. And roughly, and this varies with person, roughly half, a few minutes for the cool down. Joe McMonacles says this is very important because this is where you're getting rid of the day-to-day stuff, the intellectual stuff that was going on during the day. All my stuff I've been talking about, all that disappears, and you get down to where there's your subconscious listening to the information coming up from the UCC. Okay, you set your intention, expectation, and you witness what your sub provides. I'm about to click on this. There is a 5-minute notice, but it's pretty low to not disturb you. And then 1 minute before the end, I'll actually start bringing you back. Okay, let's begin now. Okay, have about a minute left. You might ask your sub for another precept or two. Okay. Come on back to your normal state. Shake up a little bit. Let me see if I can get rid of this one. Very good. Definitely recommend writing end or EOS, end of session, at the bottom of your transcript. And that session is now over. I hope that felt good, relaxing. So now we've got the next step, which is, guess what? The analysis judging. Here is where the question that was asked, we get the yes or no. We don't know which is associated with photosite A or B, but by choosing photosite A or B, then the computer will tell us which way we went. So we're going to match the transcripts for the two possible targets. Now, what we're about to get into, I never really quite know if I should show this or not. Deborah gave a talk and she talked a lot about judging. She used to do independent judging and was a strong advocate of that. But then what she found was that there were a lot of problems even with the independent judge, in that she would get a lot of information about both targets and sometimes describe the wrong possible target very well. So this caused her to say this thing, that time and space factors in ARV, that the judging set should be seen as dangerous. I just don't like that word very much, but it is dangerous to getting the wrong information and the information about the other target, even if you never see it. That's the thing about independent judging. The remote viewer will only see the correct target and yet is able to give a good description of the incorrect target. This is just another demonstration of how powerful, marvelous the conscious mind is, that consciousness is. You're basically getting the information from the UCC, but it was put down in the UCC for the judge. I mean, somebody has to see the two choices in binary ARV. So she is saying, anchor your attention to time and actual physical space where feedback will be seen with your physical eyes. In other words, when you're here, go here. I sort of say the same thing, but I would like it for you to do this. And in fact, as I'm talking about this, you can kind of mentally do it. You can build like a space-time capsule for your analysis judging session. This is kind of like psychic shielding in that world. And what you do is intend and expect that your AJ session will have minimal interaction with anything outside this session, anything. So, you're like putting a bubble around you. And while the two targets are out there, Okay, you're just connecting up with the correct feedback target. So you really don't let anything else in but that. Okay. Now, ultimately, as we've said a few times, there's a 0 to 7 confidence ranking scale, and 0, 1, or 2, and this is what needs to be ultimately put into the online judging page that actually we're going to see shortly and we'll do. But 0, 1, or 2 are from no to little correspondence to some correct elements, precepts, percepts, sometimes I call them, but this was done by Russell Targ and a group at SRI. But he calls them elements, and some, but not sufficient to suggest results beyond chance. So, you know, if you chose random words from the dictionary and random sketches from Google or something like that, you might get some matches, but they wouldn't be enough compared to your whole transcript where you'd say it's any more than chance. Now, 3 is a mixture of correct and incorrect elements, but enough of the correct elements to indicate that you, the viewer, has made contact, psychic contact with the target. So at 3, we're saying, yeah, you know what, that's good enough that I made some psychic contact. But 4 is now good correspondence with several matchable elements intermixed with some incorrect information. In terms of action at the level of wagering, we consider a confidence ranking, a CR, a 3.5 to be wagerable. In other words, you said, okay, I'm enough over that just getting it line, that it's good enough that I'd be willing to wager a few bucks on it. That's one way to say it. So if you put down, when we finished our judging, a 3.5, that's saying, okay, I think it's wagerable. But 4 is really, really good. You're feeling really comfortable now that you did a psychic connection. And 5 adds that not only good correspondence, but now with unambiguous, unique matchable elements. Before it was several matchable elements. Now it's several matchable elements, but some of them are unambiguous and unique. So the level of matching has gone up to where it needs to be better. Unambiguous and unique, the judge is going to have to use based on experience, and most people now are using, at least in our group, are using self-judging. So you'll see enough of your own stuff to know when it's kind of a step up where the word unambiguous and unique works. So these are really very good. 6 and 7 get into the analytical overlays where the intellect is involved, but it turns out to be correct. The rule about AOLs, analytical overlays, the stuff that comes from the intellect, is that most of the time it is not correct, but some of the time it's right on. And when it's right on, give yourself credit. Then you can go up to a level of a 6 where you name things, and then a 7 where there's now almost no incorrect information and you've named the target. With 6, there's usually maybe a little incorrect information, but those both sort of have this analytical edge. Now, I want to tell you about Joe's approach, which I alluded to before. The basic idea is that you give 50% weight. Notice I've just given you kind of words. Joe wanted to make it a little bit more analytical, plus he wants to give more strength to what we call first impression gestalts, the kind of thing that smacks you in the face, gets you in the ballpark of the whole photo site kind of right away. That one picture we saw there was sort of green, white, animal, goose, You wouldn't use the word goose, but living, something of that sort. Um, and every photo site just has a gestaltish character about it, but the kind of first impression gestalt, sometimes there could be more than one. And he wants to give 50% weight to that, and then 50% weight to what is more commonly done, is where people simply do this A, B, or nothing approach, and then you count the A's over the total possible elements that you put down, and you get that fraction, and you do that for the B. And a lot of people simply only use that. And typically the A over the total or the B over the total needs to be about 50%, half of the possible, or what you would call a match, a good match. And a capital A might count as a 1, a little a might count as a half. But you do get that ratio. But in Joe's approach, that only counts for half. And so first you do the figs, and that gives you something between 0 and 1. And then you add that second ratio, and we saw someone who actually did that math. It's not like it's that hard, but I put this on a scale like this just to show that it's really no big deal. On that one, you come up with the 2 to get between a confidence ranking of 0 to 7. You can add this number that you get for the fig. Hey, maybe you said, you know what, I got 3/4 of the figs correct, 0.75. I got a match here of 0.5. You can add those two together and divide by 2, and that'll give you the number here. So ultimately, you need to come up with a 0 to a 7 for photo site A, and then for photo site B. So we call that maybe CRA or CRB. Now I'm about to show you the 2 pictures and how to put in the CRs. What I'd like you to do is mark the ABs on your transcript, put the CRs you finally come with on your transcript, and then email it as an attachment to me. Now, how do we get the 2 possibilities? Well, remember our coordinate? We said it was 432,842. This is the live website where I got it from, and I had just made a copy of this. So at this point, if you were doing this on your own at home as one of the possible groups, you would upload your transcript to your computer. And I have something I call a dummy transcript, because it's not a real transcript. And it simply would go into here. So you'd upload it from your computer. And then as soon as you click submit, up will come the first. Okay, so there it is. Up comes photo site A. Now I'm going to ask you to do something in terms of judging. Actually, this is the first time I'm doing it, but I do think it is a very good idea. I'll put the TARG scale over there. But what I want you to do is, maybe in a different color pen or pencil, just do photo site A versus your transcript. Below is photo site B. So what I'm going to do is about 5 minutes to judge this. And if you don't finish, that's okay. A lot of people want to see them both and do the ABs. But this time, just so you get a feeling for it, and a lot of people think this is the best way to do it. You now see photo site A. So on your transcript, against each element, you'll put either a capital A, a lowercase a, or leave it blank if it's not a match. So do that, and then in 5 minutes, I'll show you photo site B. Okay, that was a little awkward. I apologize for that. I just didn't have time to do this before the class. But there's the TARG scale. Okay, so in principle, and 5 minutes is actually maybe enough time for some of you or may not, but if it is, you would have a CRA equal some number between 0 and 7 right on your transcript. Now I'm going to show you photo site B, but as I said, finish A, and then I'm going to actually show both. But there's photo site B. If you had finished photo site A, you would now do that standalone and go all the way through it. But I am, because you are all in different places, I will show both of these to you. So there is photo site B. And then ultimately, we will go 0 to 7 here, 0 to 7 there, and then comments below, and we're done. So it's really designed to be user-friendly in terms of what the user has to do so that they can really put all their attention into the remote viewing session, now the judging, independent or self, and then the feedback session. When you finish your judging, and take as much time as it takes, this is where the action comes in. Action item, the decision on the answer to the question that's being asked. So you take as much time as necessary, but then with your marked transcripts with A's and B's, email it here. I think you all have my email address. There you go. So just send it as an attachment, or occasionally people put it in the context, the main part of the email, but generally an attachment works best. So you can either scan it, take a picture of it with your smartphone. Okay, Mike, I see your comment. And I see Jenny. Well, a smartphone works as well as a scanner, Millie, but if you don't have one, that's fine. Still do your judging. We just won't be able to share it, and that's fine. Jenny, I hope you did a session, even without the coordinate. Your intention was probably pretty clear that it would be what we're working on now, sort of by default. So even not having the exact coordinate, and Joe says he doesn't ever really pay attention much to that. What he does is, oh, good. Now rank it though, and also rank it against B. Okay, so you judge it against both, no matter what. I see your statement here. Good. So you'll just get a higher ranking for one over the other. Yeah. On the emails you send with the transcript and the judging and the attachment, in the subject, do put the coordinate. Because when I find it a month from now, that's what I'll do a search on. I'll do a search on that number. And so then all your transcripts will come up. So put that in the subject line. You know, you can just say that or transcript and that or whatever you want to say, but just have that be one of the elements of the subject line. You know, I'm gonna just on the subject line, put the coordinate, because a month from now, that's what I'll search on my email. So in the subject line, put 432843. And then you can say transcript or whatever. Let me put my email on the other side so I can see when they come in. Okay, and again, take your time. As much time as this takes, it's worth it. Okay, thank you, Lila. Okay, there's a transcript. That's the one I want. Okay. Put this down here. And let me bring over the first transcript. That'll work. Whoops. Hmm. How do I not have that active? Okay, so I'm letting the rest of you do one, but there's one up here, but don't let it divert. Oops. These are my computer glasses. Okay, so I have a table of start with the confidence ratings. Lila, you can unmute yourself. Let me see what you put for your CRs.
Marty,
Yep,
when you turn your head, we can't hear you.
right. And you got to
Okay.
keep telling me that.
Okay.
And I thank you for what you're sending along, you and Mike.
Okay. And did you also see in the chat? I meant to put my CRs on the
Okay.
page.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Very good.
A is a 4.5 and B is a 3.
Okay. You just didn't put it on transcript, which is a good policy, but you probably forgot. Okay. Got it. So you're in there now. So for A, you got a 4.5.
What?
For
What?
A, you got a 4.5.
Yes.
Okay. And I certainly see burnt. That works.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think,
Outdoors. Yeah, go ahead. Why don't you tell us about your judging? Go ahead.
okay, so burnt was the first impression that I got. Burnt.
Mm-hmm.
And then split in half came next, one of my dynamics. But I don't know if that's really split in half. I split into many pieces, but
Right.
textures, I did not get textures, which is kind of strange for me. Usually I get a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I concentrated more on dimensions, dynamics, and colors. And so I definitely got something explosive,
Open
as I wrote down.
Yep.
And reds, my colors, there are not a whole lot of colors. They're describing the colors.
Uh-huh.
And the reds, I didn't say just red.
Yeah,
I
reds.
said reds.
Right.
Yeah.
And pink is close enough. I would have given a little A.
Yeah.
I would have given a little A to that. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
Open, airy, tall. It's all there. Skinny, goes up.
Right.
I mean, I got it all right there. All my ideograms point to up, going up, 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 up.
Mm-hmm.
My dynamics.
Oh, here you drew even through the up arrow.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
I thought bubbly was an interesting dynamic. It could be a small a.
Which one was that?
Dynamics, bubbly.
Yep.
Right?
Right. And that is something that's worth doing when you do your judging, just like you're doing now. After you almost think you're done, one more
Yes.
time through, because you
Yes.
see how
Yes.
often people make mistakes during feedback. They say, "Oh boy, why didn't I catch that?" Well, at the judging time is the time to catch it.
Right, right. And I always make sure that I do a second pass through. I do a quick one
Good.
the way we just did it, where I see photosite A first, I judge that one, and then I see photosite B next.
Right.
And then I go back down to the bottom and I see both of them, and I go over my transcript again to see what I missed. And quite often I'll find 3, 4, or 5 things that I missed.
That's perfect. Perfect. I really like that. I hope the rest of you heard that. That is really a good way to do judging. But people develop their own styles, but that's a beautiful one. Okay, Lila, let me go get the next person. Thank you. you are in the system. So let me go to my email. Which is here somewhere. Well, let me go back here and find it this way. Okay. Good. Kennedy. The next one. Okay, very good. Interesting. So, yeah. What? Turn on your mic. Let me see.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Kennedy. Are you still here?
We can't hear you, Marty.
That's the thing. I turned off my face because I have all kinds of stuff on my other screen. So do keep reminding me. Okay, is this your session? Whose session is this? Would somebody? Let's see. Who? Oh, I don't. Millie. Okay, so Kennedy may have submitted a session and gone. I know it's not yet. Okay, so they look like they left, but this is a very. Anybody? Yeah. Okay, so they've left.
Jenny
So,
said me in chat, I believe.
oh. Oh, Jenny, that's you? Jenny Kennedy. Okay, terrific. You don't have. Oh, you do have a mic. You want to talk to us, or you prefer not to?
Unmuted.
There you are. I unmuted you. So, do you want to talk to us about it?
Can you hear me?
Yep, hear you
Oh.
just fine.
Okay. I just pretty much saw a volcano type thing, and I don't know. I'm embarrassed. It's
Yeah,
my
don't
first
be
time.
embarrassed. This one,
No.
was this the very first thing you got?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, that's kind of remarkable, isn't it?
It was just I couldn't see anything else but just those shapes that I have drawn, and I didn't get any words or sounds or smells because I wasn't really even sure what I was doing. So
That's probably a good thing. You know,
beginner's luck, I guess. I don't know.
That's right.
For the camel, I think I got like a couple little bumps on a down down at the bottom. Yeah.
That might be camel's
Yeah.
the eyes or the person's eyes in a hat. I would have given that a little B.
A little bee.
Maybe, yeah. No.
Hmm.
You know, there, I see.
And there's a person too. I thought he was just standing there with his hands in his pockets. But
Okay, now let me tell you what I think you did here.
okay.
And I suggest you don't do it. This is clearly, in my opinion, big B. I mean, you got a person, you got a person.
Yes.
During your judging, probably right after you saw this and this, you made up your mind it's going to be A. And so you really didn't judge B independently.
Oh.
Wouldn't
yeah.
wouldn't you looking at this now think that that should be a regular B? I mean, you
Yeah.
couldn't, even the two arms, while it's not in his pocket, both hands are showing.
Yep.
I mean, if that had been the first thing that you got or one of the few things you got, that would be considered a good match. So that's a big B. Okay, so that's the way to treat judging. Totally independent. In fact, here I see something that could easily be a face right there.
It felt like windows, like a person standing in a place looking out the windows at the scene behind, I guess. I don't know.
Okay, but notice you say looking.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be a big B, maybe a little B, because you know I don't see a whole. Oh yeah, but there are even some rectangles here, and look at all the windows. Look at all the windows.
Yep.
So when you're judging, and that's the kind of stuff, you know, like Lila said, you go back and you always find stuff you miss. when you go back, that's just the stuff you're looking for. Okay?
Would it be better to have someone else judge it to begin with, just since I don't know what I'm doing?
That's called independent judging. And if you can find someone to do that, that would be great. But self-judging seems to work because the subconscious, if it wants to, can get information from both. In fact, now that I'm looking at this looks like it could even be buildings back here.
It does look kind of like that.
Right. You
Point.
see, and notice even what you said, it all looked like volcanoes.
Yeah.
But you see, that's why you go over it element by element. And you mark it as an A, big A, big B, little b, or nothing. But I would definitely say that should be a big B. That should be a big B. I don't know. This may be a little b. And but also your volcanoes are very good. You see this right here? I'd actually make that a super big A. I mean, I do that. You know, I mean, this is so good that it's even, better than a normal A. And, you might decide to give that when you do your counting, which you didn't do here, give it 1.5 or 2 points, depending on how good you feel it is. But that's darn good. And then it looks like your subconscious started peaking at this one.
Yeah.
This one is clearly stronger. Okay, so I'm going in my table, which I'll put in now. Okay, so I'm going to put Jenny, and after talking about it the way we did, I think the 5 is fine. What do you think?
I don't hear anything.
Oh, okay, the 5 is fine for the A.
Okay.
What do you think we should do for B? I think you agree it's not a 0.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get you to make a choice just to help you think it through. It's not a 0, right?
Right, it's not.
Do you think, oh, where's my targ scale? Do you think it gets up to the level of, you think it's random or better than that?
I'd say better just because I got those 2 pointy things and
Okay, I do too. And I
don't see anything that looks like that strange round thing with the little arms on it at the bottom. I don't know, maybe that's camel related.
Yeah, I don't know. And it could be nothing. And some you wouldn't mark that at all. But that one's clearly an A. But you're right. I would say it's more than a 2. I don't know if I would say it's good, but certainly you've got the gestalt of this one. You've got the gestalt of this one.
Mm-hmm.
I almost think if all I were to do is have this picture and this, forget about the volcano. Say it wasn't a volcano. It was something very different than a volcano. And that's how you should treat it. You should treat it judging it alone. I don't know. I would certainly give it at least a 3. I don't know if I'd give it a 3.5 because the gestalt is so good. But you see, there's a lot of other stuff that doesn't go with B. So the ratio of matches, and that's why you do this ratio of total elements. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, maybe 13 elements. And sometimes you even count sub-elements. But you probably have close to half. I would say I would give you either a 2.5 or I'd give you a 3 on this. I'm going to mark
A 3 on the B.
on the B.
Okay.
And notice that was about where you came. So you're already learning. How you learn. And you know what? The suffering that we did with this together, but you did, that doesn't completely go away. People who are doing this for 20 years still have trouble deciding if it should be a 3 or a 4 or 3.5. and different judges typically differ by one. So there isn't any exact right way to do it.
Do you think maybe the volcano was stronger to me just because it is so dynamic compared to a person on a camel?
Some people would suggest that, and I think that's something you just have to train yourself for. You have to make all of them, even if it's a bunch. And I had somebody once do this. There was a target, which I've not taken out because I've got too many criticisms, of a bunch of pencils, so, all lined up. So the idea was to get the geometry. And some people did get that, but a lot said, that is so boring. And yet one person who got a hit on it said, no, that wasn't boring. I got something about the manufacturing, which he had done at feedback time. I got into the lead that is inside the pencil. So part of the thing at feedback time is to make it interesting to you.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, is to love it, no matter what it is, because love is a good entangler. You see? Mm-hmm. You understand the philosophy that we're doing here. And you try never to make excuses. And people will criticize some pairings for just having.
So now I need to write down the coordinate number. Is that right? Because I didn't get the number. So
Yes, you didn't have it before. So usually you would have the coordinate on top. Otherwise, this was great. Okay, and then you'll do, I think you've learned now a lot about the judging for future ones.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Brett, why don't you turn on your mic?
Sure.
There you go.
I can go over my session if you'd like.
Yeah, I think that's valuable, for everybody. Wait, let me close this one. Lost yours. Yeah, there you are, right?
You'll have to change the pages for me, but
I'll do that. There you go. Yep. So tell us about this.
Yeah, sure. So my initial impressions right away were something hard, grainy, rocky, solid, hard, and then I just had a very clear picture of rocks cracking, and obviously, too high level, so I AOL'd it there, and then tan and speckled. I had very distinct blue came up twice, but that was really the only main singular identifier for photosite B, but the rest that was kind of associated with A in there is I got hot, body warm, splashing. I just like a lot of energetics. If you look at my dimensions, like it's an oval wide area with a lot of wavy, many and across. And so my two main archetypes of the site was something that's across, basically land, and a wavy energetic.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I explored the wavy energetic just to get more information on that. And I got, associated with A was, again, there's this hard, but then I was describing it as wet, and this came up again at the very end, but it's like a dense, hard place with a lot of bumpy tan, and then hot again, but I kind of got both. But I mean, even at the site, there's probably hot and cold. But noises that seemed very pertinent was like a splashing, thumping, loud sound.
Very nice.
And then the up and like the horizontal, it's like just the wavy going, kind of going all over the place. Big distant area where things are going across horizontal and up and down. And AOL there, it's like I saw sand dunes, and so I saw had a couple other AOLs, but they weren't really relevant. The only really relevant one was the sand dunes, and so what I drew was just it was an open area, and there's just this wavy energetic that's kind of coming down in the middle of the photo site.
Right.
And so the final page. Go ahead.
Yeah. No. Go ahead. Yeah.
Final page. I just did a quick stage 4, and the main A data pretty much all fits to photo site A. Is that It's a natural place where there's a quick darting motion, a texture sensory of wet, kind of sooty, hot, warm, and something's like moving back and forth, undulating. And there's something else there's also slow motion there, which considering that's lava ultimately would probably be the case. So like a lot of energetics going up and down all over the place, and then something ultimately hot that's moving, that's slow.
Right.
So the other do I have any other AOLs there?
Yeah, even
The desert came back again, and then it's like I had just other AOLs kind of trying to butt in, like energetics being a river or like a snake or something. So I just discharged those. But overall, comparing the data in the session, like almost it was like 54 A's and only 15 B's.
Yeah.
And the only like really standoutish B was the blue, to be honest. And then I suppose there is land at both sites. So as far as
desert, I mean, come on. Desert.
yeah. So desert, I think that I did put that in there. B.
Yeah, here.
Desert, yeah.
I
So
would even say crawling should be a little B.
yeah, I thought about that. It's like whether or not it's walking or it's stationary. That's why I didn't put it there. It's like, wow. It's like, I guess you could kind of say the long neck. Maybe you could do a little B even on Python, but again, it's AOL, so I give it a little bit less credence. But
exactly.
You're right. Probably could have done a little B.
Definitely just nitpicking for people who, if they would have done a little B, that's reasonable.
It would be reasonable, I think. Yeah, for sure. So
okay.
Overall, CR I gave A 5.5 and B I just gave 1.
So you started this once I gave you the coordinates. What did you do? You took about 15, 20 minutes to do this?
So you broke up there. What'd you say?
You took about 15, 20 minutes to do this?
This is like about, I don't know, 8 to 10 minutes. Usually takes about 8 to 10 minutes to do this structure.
You see, that's so important for people who are listening to this who have been trained, like you obviously have, in, I don't know, CRV, I think this looks like.
It's a little bit more structured version of CRV, but yeah.
Okay. And that's the point. You don't have to do a real long CRV session. You can get through to stage 3, and it looks like that's about where you stop. Maybe you did just a touch of 4.
Yeah,
And I'm writing this to people, and I'm saying this to people who understand that, because you do want ARV, because you want to do a lot of them. You want to get into a rhythm of doing them along with your other longer sessions. If that interests you, I think combining them is really very powerful. And so I really like that here's a great example of one that took you 10 to 15 minutes, say. Okay, Brett, thanks a lot.
I'd say most 10 minutes. I've done so many that you move pretty quick. So
yeah, that's wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to the next one. Okay, Anita, you're coming. So turn on your mic. Okay, I see your scores here. Open. And let's put it over here. I need to make that. Oh, in fact, I can get rid of that. Okay. Tell us about yours, Anita. See, I can unmute you, I think. There you go. You're unmuted now.
Okay, cool. My initial impression was of darkness and light, very dark, almost like a sunset, reminding me absolutely of photosite number A. Okay, then at colors, yellow, white, orange, light, sparkly, red, texture, I got like thorns or something emanating, sticking out, outward movement, radiating almost. So definitely the volcano, site A. Smell, I got like wet or damp, not really water, more like wet or wet or damp rocks, reminding me of cliffs at a beach. Taste, muddy pebble, temperature, humid, more to the warm side. Sound was loud, more almost like a lawnmower. Dimension, shape reminded me of a mountain. I also wrote in our iceberg, but it's definitely not an iceberg, but I got the idea it was a mountain or something high. Also at the top of the page, my ideograms, natural and land, reminded me of a mountain. Let me see, aesthetic, impact, feel, height, something in between, something overflowing, idea of drifting, natural, idea of waves, small things, lots of small things, reminded me of structure of moss, idea of flowing or flat, also telling me it's rather land than water.
Yep.
And that's about it. At the top, the idea there, the thing that almost looks like a moon, the idea of smoke or something, draw that in the background, and the idea of a mouth of something opening up, and that's it.
Okay, no, yeah.
I didn't really make a connection with photo site B. Only thing I got here is
blue.
GB at the left yards is the long thing with a round at the one side. The vertical concentrics, maybe the idea of a shape of a thing like a camel, but not really.
Yeah. Yeah. Doing A first the way we did, and we get so much really hard. But you must be unbiased. That's why I'm looking to see if you might.
Yes.
This, for example,
Yeah.
but it's marginal. I don't see anything quite like that. Possibly his leg, but
maybe yeah. I also looked at it. Maybe his leg, but it's
right. No, I agree. It'd really be pushing it. So it's okay to do nothing. At best, it would be a little bit. At best, it would be a little bit muddy, like a pebble. Yeah. And I like, for those of you, I really like, and you did this in the one we showed earlier, your very clear gestalt. The gestalt was a 1 for A. You gave half a gestalt. Was that generous? No, blue, maybe. Yeah.
nice blue.
And then the count here of over 35 possible. And then you multiply it by 3.5 because the max it could be is 2, and then you get up to 7. Okay, thank you very much. Very nice. Very nice example. Let me go now and get, I think there are 1 or 2 more. Here. Okay, I think that is it. And I might have missed somebody just because I'm talking and doing. I got 4 here. Did I miss anybody? Go back to my email. Was Jane, was Jenny, and then director Nita. Okay, 4 transcripts. Well, as a group manager, this is one of the simplest that to judge. There's not much to say, right?
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. I forgot what Jenny. Oh, Jenny was the one who was the new one. We moved her up to 3, right? Okay. Well, there's not much more to say. Group managers love something like this, but I must warn you, and I almost hate to say it, but I have to because I've seen it. I've seen situations like this, and it could still potentially be a miss. But this certainly would have a high probability of being photosite A, obviously. So the prediction is photosite A. And we don't know yet if that's up or down, but I'll show you how we find that out. Okay, so often most of the time, it's just not this one-sided. But at this point, I would put in, these are just all so good. In fact, I can even average them, but I think this is up at deserves like a 5.5. And this side, probably a 2.5, okay? Depending on everything, I don't usually, in fact, just take simple averages, but I think you'd agree this is certainly reasonable. So, and then put in comments. When you're doing this on your own, you put comments here. All for transcripts, transcripts were strong for photosite A. I don't think there's much more to say. I mean, as a judge, emotionally feel comfortable with the judging. I mean, I think the judging was all pretty good. So then you put in whatever else is going on, and then you submit. And here, the prediction is no. So this is the first time I know that, any of us know that, because that was for the computer. And on here is also the event. Remember, I kept you blind to it? But right here, you can see what came up as the coordinate, the 2 CRs I put up, and then the notes, which include 4 transcripts, was strong for photosite A. This is the first time we've seen that the answer is no. And the event is, will the Dow Jones Industrial Average close over 25,000 on August 13th, 2018. So that's a month from now. This morning, it was close to 25,000, so it was a reasonable question to ask, and we'll see. So we will do feedback sometime after August 13th. Okay, any questions on anything we've done thus far? And you better. Oh, no, I've got. Okay, and now let me go find where we were. And yeah. Okay, so I think we can, kind of in conclusion now, you as an independent being connected to this universe of collective consciousness, you've got your piece of it, but you're connected to all of it, using your free will, you create your precognition, which is what we just did here. Amazing what you all picked up, which is really great. You also create the causality, the retrocausality that you're going to do from here. And it's like a precognitive telepathy. It begins with the feedback session causing this information to be shared all through this UCC. There's some sort of communication channel going on, which in many ways is totally the learning that goes on. What you're doing is learning how to get more and more in touch, in the context of the model I put here, with the UCC. You've got your conscious mind, you've got your subconscious mind, which connects with the UCC, and with intention, attention, and expectation, you're getting from the UCC, which has everything, right down there is all that is. You pick up the information that you desire. And the communication channel getting cleaner and cleaner is the goal. So this is what you're learning about. You're learning about your consciousness. It's really your communication channel and independence. The fact that this is really your free will that is guiding how you move forward. So with that, and the use of what you're learning here really is valuable for health, wealth in the deepest sense of that word, which includes sharing with others, since once you really get that all of this works because we're all connected, it's very natural to share the wealth that you might get from wagering, for example. And I really do believe this makes us wiser as well. So I thank you for participating here. And any final questions, comments? Now's a good time to put them forward. Good, thank you, Anita. Yeah, I see. Yes, that really was a really good first session. Okay, so I thank you all for coming. As you probably can tell, I really do enjoy doing this, and I couldn't do it if people were not also enjoying it and joining me here. So with that, I'm going to end the meeting, and all of you keep precogging and enjoy life in your free will.